In week 3, we're going to have a look at the next few chapters of Genesis chapter 1. Genesis 1 verses 9 to 13, where God says, let the land produce vegetation. So, let's have a read at those verses now. You'll have seen in those verses that we get to think in these sections about land and trees in the creation which God has given us to care for. And when God sees what he has made, he declares it good. There are some strands within Christian thought which kind of says, heaven good, earth bad. We live in a broken world where things go wrong. And of course, we know very well that there are difficulties that happen on the earth. But God says that the earth is good. The earth is created by God, and in these chapters, in these verses in Genesis 1, at the end of each of the days or segments of creation, it says God saw this and declares it good. So we can't simply say that the earth or land or vegetation or whatever else is part of what's going to be left behind when heaven comes. Part of our responsibility of living as Christians now is to care for God's good earth. The material world, therefore, is good, not evil. And we mustn't go for sort of false ideas that separate out spiritual from material. Part of the job that God has given us as humans is to be the caretakers of the land and to respect it. We've not done that in so many ways as humans. How we connect well with the land and earth again. Well, most of us collect our food from the supermarket, so there's not a direct connection for us with which previous generations might have had. Often we're distant from the very land. It's covered in tarmac, or often we don't even get our fingers dirty in the soil, or it may not be easy for us to get to the garden or wherever. In this section, we'll get to think about lands, in other words, as nations rather than just the earth, and how people can call a land their home, and therefore also how other countries, other nations, other groups of people have come to take over lands that belonged previously to other people groups. In the past, colonisation from Western powers, groups in Europe, where people in South America, the East Indies and Africa, of course, those parts of the land of the earth were colonised by Western European powers, and that nearly always worked out badly for the local people who were being colonised. We can't talk about use of land without acknowledging the wrongs that have been done in the past. Jesus says, I'm the vine, you are the branches. So as we think about that image, we think about staying connected to him and bearing fruit. And then there's this strange truth where Jesus, whose words spoke trees into being, comes to the earth he created and is nailed to a piece of wood, a cross, and dies to save the world that he made and has come to. So as we think about these sections of Genesis 1, 9 to 13, there are so many deep things for us to work through about our life with God, our salvation, and how we should live well today, thinking about land, trees, and how we relate to things that have gone wrong in the past to do with people who came from our country and went to other lands. Lots for us to think about and pray about. Finally then, in chapter 3, which Ruth Valerio puts in her book, we get to think about deforestation, its causes and its effects. Since God created the trees, we are custodians of them. What do we do about that? What can we do to support tree planting? There's various different resources available online that we can use to find out how we could get involved with that. It's all important stuff and an important part of our discipleship.
Wonderful. Bernadette, it's so lovely to meet you, if not in person, at least on the screen. And we're doing our bit not to increase our carbon emissions by doing this interview virtually. So thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me in this way. Tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm Bernadette Kabonesa. I'm 46 years old. I'm a Ugandan by nationality. I work at the National Agricultural Research Organization at the National Forest Resources Research Institute in Uganda.
How did you get interested in forestry? How did you get started in this area?
I started working in forestry after training at Nyabia Forestry College at the certificate level in 2001. In 2009, I upgraded to a diploma in forestry. In 2014, I graduated with a bachelor's degree in social and entrepreneurial forestry of Makerere University. In 2020, this year, I graduated with a Master of Science in Agroforestry of Makerere University.
So tell us a bit about your work and what it involves.
My work involves research. I'm a senior research technician at the National Forest Resources Research Institute. I do research in all aspects of forestry. My work involves setting experiments and trials, data collection, training students and stakeholders on forest-related innovations. I train students on energy-saving technologies and innovations, agroforestry practices and technologies and innovations. I do plantation silviculture and natural forest silviculture. I'm one of the botanists in Uganda. I do taxonomy. I do forest inventories, resource assessments, and any activity related to forestry. My work aims at increasing the benefits derived from trees and forests through conservation and sustainable management.
And do you have a favourite tree?
Yes, I do have favorite trees. Not only one favorite tree, I have different favorite trees in different settings. In agroforestry setting, I have a favorite tree. In trees for energy, I have a favorite tree. Trees for conservation, I have a favorite tree. And briefly, I can say Mangifera indica is one of my favorite trees. Mangifera indica is a tree which fruits heavily. It's a fruit tree that fruits heavily. It is consumed by young children, elderly, and adults. Mangifera tree indica fruit is delicious and nutritive. It is medicinal. It is rich in vitamins, iron, zinc. It treats many ailments. Mango
What do
fruits.
you think? What are the advantages that trees bring to a landscape, to a community, to an ecosystem?
The advantage of trees in our landscapes, our communities and ecosystems is broad, but I can briefly say that trees stabilizes the soils, control water runoff and soil erosion. Trees are planted on the roadsides, in our homes, on streets, parks, parking yards, playing grounds, to create a peaceful, beautiful, and pleasing environment. Trees bring a natural setting in our communities, in our homes. When you have trees in your compound, you feel that natural setting in your home. Trees act as windbreaks and wind belts. Trees help to reduce air and water pollution. Trees are sources of food, medicine, energy, sources of livelihood, and they are meeting venues for most communities. Trees help to moderate temperature by creating a cooling system. Trees sequester carbon dioxide and other toxic gases from the atmosphere, in return replenishing the atmosphere with oxygen that we breathe. Trees create a microclimate that attracts fauna and flora, and trees and forest ecosystems host a variety of fauna and flora, microorganisms, and are the richest ecosystem in terms of biodiversity in the world.
In chapter 3 of Saying Yes to Life, I talk about the unhelpful dualism that's existed within Christianity that separated the so-called spiritual sphere from the earthly sphere. And that kind of understanding tells us that it's more important to plant churches than it is to plant trees. Have you encountered that kind of thinking and theology in your own work or in your church? And how have you worked through that for your own work and interest?
What I have been doing with communities seeking and churches seeking tree planting, since I started working after college in 2001, I have worked with communities on tree planting. But to be brief, I do establish on-farm trials and experiments with communities. I plant trees in agroforestry systems. I do farmer-managed natural regeneration with communities. I plant trees for tree farmers and investors. I do plant trees with churches. Right now, I'm working with the Baptist Church to plant trees around all their churches.
You're obviously from Uganda, sitting in your office in Uganda. Can you tell us what the challenges are currently facing Uganda and forest cover?
The challenges are trees are expensive to grow, to grow and manage. Trees are expensive in procurement of seedlings. Tools are expensive. Sometimes tools for forestry are not found in Uganda. We have to import them. There is a challenge that trees take long to grow and to bring returns. So farmers prefer planting other crops than planting trees. There is a challenge of species selection. Farmers prefer trees that grow very fast and they get returns very fast. So they prefer species like eucalyptus, pines that will grow very fast compared to our indigenous trees that can keep our biodiversity. So we are still having a challenge, though most farmers are sensitized on the importance of growing indigenous trees and retaining those indigenous trees on their farmlands. Our farmers are lacking training. They are not trained on how to plant trees, on tree management, importance of trees, though they are planting trees, but they need much training. There is a problem of land shortage. Most farmers have small pieces of land, and those small pieces of land, they want to use it for agriculture. So we find it difficult to plant trees with smallhold farmers.
Are there specific stories of hope that you could tell us?
The stories of hope we have sensitized communities on tree planting, on the importance of retaining trees on their farms, why they should plant trees, why they should have trees in their agroforest systems, and they are catching up with it, and they are truly wanting to plant trees and to keep them on their farm. We have hope that payment for ecosystem services, They have started paying farmers who are planting trees and farmers who are maintaining trees on their land, though they are still paying less, but with time they will improve and farmers will keep